This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good afternoon. We're coming on the air with news of a new hostage release coming in right now. This is the fourth day of this truce, this tentative truce between Israel and Hamas. The Israeli military confirming hostages are now in the hands of the Red Cross. These are pictures just a short time ago. This was inside Gaza as the hostages were handed over by Hamas over to the Red Cross. Qatar's foreign minister says there are 11 hostages, no Americans among them. In exchange, Israel will release 33 Palestinian prisoners, including 3 women and 30 minors. The Biden administration believes at this point there are still 8 or 9 Americans among the nearly 200 hostages still being held. Earlier today, the White House confirming the two sides have agreed to extend this ceasefire now for 2 more days. The White House says Hamas has committed in those 2 days to release another 20 women and children in the next 48 hours. Again, the pictures you're looking at coming in just a short time ago. These are hostages inside Gaza being held by Hamas, being handed over to the Red Cross then delivering them through Egypt back to Israel. And we have just learned they are back in Israeli territory. Let's bring in Matt Gutman, who is standing by with late reporting. Matt, what have you learned?
David, a special IDF unit picked them up somewhere near the border, taking them from the Red Cross. In today's batch, the 4th batch in 4 consecutive days, 9 children and 2 women. All of them, it's 5 families. All of them have fathers still in Gaza of those 5 families. They're now going to be brought to an Israeli military base. Then they'll get a brief medical check. At that point, they'll check their identities, make sure that they are who were listed on that list given from Hamas to the Israeli military and the government. Then they're going to hand them a telephone. They're going to allow them to have that first call with loved ones. Then they're going to take them to that base, finish up that check, fly them to a hospital in Israel, and that's where they'll physically be reunited with their families. And what's key here is that this has worked. It was about 7 hours late today, also very late on Saturday, but 4 days in a row, Israel and Hamas managed to execute a hostage release in exchange for that ceasefire. And it's the template, the test run for the next 2 days, we understand, of additional hostage releases and ceasefire. Israel also committing to release 3 Palestinian prisoners for each hostage released. So this is going to continue for the next couple of days. And critically, David, it also means that 200 additional aid trucks will go into Gaza with that critically needed aid for Palestinians living in Gaza. Reminder, there are over 1 million Palestinians being sheltered just by the UN alone, David.
Just to drill down on this for our viewers joining us within the last minute or two, you're looking at, again, pictures coming in just a short time ago, as Matt Gutman just reported there. These are hostages that have been held by Hamas inside Gaza, 11 of them. It's believed it includes 9 children and 2 women handed over by Hamas to the Red Cross then delivering them through Egypt and back into Israel at this hour. We always wait to make sure they're back in Israeli territory before we come on with the news. And Matt, just back to you for one big picture question here. This is now day 4 of this very tentative truce between Israel and Hamas. Each of these days has brought a batch of hostages for these families that have been enduring this excruciating wait, and they've now agreed to 2 more days. And during those 2 days, they'll be releasing additional hostages, additional groups of hostages on each one of those days?
So it's been weeks, David, that the U.S., along with Qatar, Egypt, and on the other side, Israel and Hamas, have been mediating this agreement. And the basic template is that for each 10 hostages that Hamas releases, they buy themselves 24 hours of a ceasefire. And so the initial agreement, the initial framework was for 4 days. And if that worked, and that's where we are now, it has worked, they would allow an additional 2 days, and it could keep going on for a number of days after that. As long as Hamas continues to release 10 hostages per day, that ceasefire, 24 hours more, will continue. The border crossing in Rafah between Egypt and Gaza will remain open to trucks carrying food, medicine, water, and critically today, 8 trucks of fuel as well, because it's desperately needed in Gaza right now. So this system appears to be working. The question is, what happens when it ends? Because at some point, Hamas is going to say they can't give up any more hostages. They have refused so far to release men or women of fighting age. There are still probably around 150 left in the hands of Hamas and other groups in Gaza at this point. So the question is, what happens when it's over? And Israeli security officials have been telling me that as soon as this deal is over, they're not going to ramp up gradually to the war. They're going to do it immediately and ferociously. It's going to be full on in Gaza once again. Their aim, they continue to say, is to destroy Hamas, to dismantle it as much as they can in the Gaza Strip, David.
Matt Gutman reporting live from Israel. And again, this release of 11 additional hostages comes 24 hours after 17 hostages were released. We have new images of one of those hostages in particular, a 4-year-old American, Abigail Edan. Her parents were killed by Hamas. We have been reporting about her story here. Her father actually died while trying to protect her in his arms. She ran to a neighbor's home where they were then taken captive by Hamas. 58 hostages released before today, obviously the 11 today in addition to those 58. And again, as we just heard from Matt Gutman, the 11 today involves 9 children, 2 women. I want to bring in our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce. Obviously, Mary, the White House welcoming the news of additional hostages being released, but certainly disappointed there are not Americans among them.
Yeah, of course, David, they are welcoming this news, grateful that these hostages are being released, but they had been hoping that Americans would be among them. They continue to be hopeful that in the next 2 coming days, we will see Americans being released. The White House, though, is stressing that they have very little visibility into who is on Hamas's list, how the organization is deciding who to release and when. And the White House also stressing there's a lot unknown about the Americans who are still being held. The White House hasn't seen proof of life. They simply don't know the condition of the remaining Americans who are being detained. They don't even know where they are or who is holding them, whether they are being held by Hamas or one of these other terrorist organizations. The White House has said that they do believe the majority of the remaining Americans being held are men. Of course, right now, Hamas is only releasing women and children. The White House believing there may be just 2 American women still being detained. What we do know, David, is that this is the president's top priority right now. He is working this hour by hour, working the phones in near constant contact with the leaders of Qatar, Egypt, and of course the Israeli prime minister. The president remaining hopeful and optimistic that in these next 2 days, this extended truce that the president was critical to helping to negotiate, that as we see an additional 20 hostages released, that Americans will be among them. But David, I was just told the administration has not been given any assurances that Americans will be part of that group.
Mary Bruce live at the White House. As you heard Mary just report there from her source at the White House, they do not know the condition of the remaining Americans being held hostage, being held captive by Hamas. It's believed 8 or 9 Americans. It's not clear whether or not it's even Hamas holding them at this point and where in Gaza they are, whether it's another terrorist group. Again, so many unknown questions here as we continue to watch these developments unfold. Day 4 of this truce, an additional 11 hostages just released, 9 of them children, 2 of them women. And we know that Israel and Hamas, through mediators, Qatar and the U.S. included among that group, negotiating for an additional 2 days. It's believed hostages will be released over the course of those 2 days. And as Mary Bruce just reported, no promise, though, that Americans will be among them. Certainly, we're hoping for that. We simply do not know. For many of you, you're standing by for your local news to begin at 4 p.m. here in the East just moments from now. Our coverage will continue on ABC News Live, abcnews.com. And, of course, I'll be back with Mary and Matt and the entire team for World News Tonight. Until then, good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.